Ever since the dawn of humankind, we've sought the origins of our life and its purpose. Some have chosen to look to science, religion, or philosophy for answers. Many have turned to the great masters such as Lao-tzu, the Buddha, and Jesus Christ for spiritual illumination. Still others have sought truth through their own direct experience. All of us are searching, knowingly or unknowingly, for enlightenment, truth, and harmony in our lives. This program, hosted by Dr. Gregory Penn, will help you aspire to a more fulfilling and rewarding life.
Every day we take a step, we understand. The closer that we get, we'll find in who we are. We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We'll find in who we are. There's so many roads.
Welcome to Aspire. We're going to work on a very beautiful concept this morning. We're going to be working with the depth and the width of Jesus in a very unusual way. You know, Jesus, if you look at him, was a very dangerous person because he brings us to the depths of our heart. He forces us to look at some things about our life that need to be lost. So come spend a half hour with us as we look at Jesus from a very different point of view, from the angle of his heart and of the Christ in him. In the second half of Aspire, I'm going to be answering some questions that many of you have written in. So come be with us as we seek the way of the heart. There is an ancient saying that says that man was created for religion, not religion for man. And I tend to agree with statements like that. We've created so much religion and so many taboos and don't do this and do that and thou shalt not do this and thou shalt do that, that we begin to forget about the flow and the essence of a real teaching, a teaching that takes us to the core of us. We in the West have a very difficult concept of, for instance, the man Jesus. We either look at him as some sort of real savior that has come to save the world and is different from any other human being that ever lived, that was never really tempted and was a perfect man, or we look at him as a victim of humanity. We only think about his cruel crucifixion. But to know Jesus is to know a very dangerous person. He's not this lamb that most people like us to think that he was. In the West, we have created Jesus. We've created him in the image and the likeness of ourselves, what you and I can accept, not necessarily what he really was. Consider this for a moment. We think of Jesus as a Westerner with Western ideals. That Westerner that says, well, this is good and this is bad, and you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. To get into the nature of Jesus is a very dangerous thing. And I like to call Jesus the divinely dangerous. Because the closer you come to a Jesus, the less you can fool yourself. There's no lying, there's no fooling, there's no barriers anymore. He cuts through those barriers. We have created Jesus in kind of a suit and tie attitude. If you will look at his teachings, you will notice that Jesus never said to anyone, I love you. And he never said, do this, don't do that. You'd better be this and you'd better not be that. That's the way we like to think of him in the West. We need to broaden our point of view. Begin to see Jesus for what he really was. We can learn from that. We can learn from the teachings that he offered to us if we work from that point of view. Again, I like to, as I've said to you many times before, work from the book of Thomas. And the reason I like to work from it is so natural. Jesus is such a natural person in this. I want to read to you a passage. This is in Log 80. And in future programs, we're going to spend a lot of time on the book of Thomas because here's where we get to see the nature of Jesus. He said, whosoever is near to me is near to the fire, and whosoever is far from me is far from the kingdom. Whosoever is near to me is near the fire. Fire destroys. It consumes things. It destroys things. And that's the first thing that a Jesus does, is that he destroys things. Do you remember the rich man that came to Jesus? And he said to Jesus, how may I obtain life eternal? And Jesus said, go and sell all that you have and come back, and I will give you the kingdom of heaven. And the man said, no, I can't do that. That's the kind of destroyer Jesus was. He takes things that you and I think are very valuable and very real and very necessary, and he destroys them. If you look at his teachings, you never see him say, I love you to anyone. Not to one of his disciples, no, not even to his mother. He destroys the very concept of what we think love is, and yet Jesus personifies the great unconditional love that is God. Very few people see this. We've created Jesus the way we want him to be, and therefore we cannot learn from him. We cannot understand his teachings because they come from something very beautiful. Unconditional love in all of us. Jesus, Buddha, Lao-tzu, all the great masters, they're all the same. They teach us one thing, how to die that we might find life again. Jesus' conversation with Nicodemus. Nicodemus knowing that Jesus was very special, and he breaks into the conversation and he says, you must be born again. There's no other way. You must be born again. But before you can have that second birth, something in us must die. And Jesus is there, so to speak, to destroy that. He was what I again call a divinely dangerous person. To come near to him means that all of your aspirations and all of your desires, all of your rights and all of your wrongs would be destroyed. And for one beautiful moment in you, we would be empty enough to see things as they are. It's a very interesting thought. Jesus unburdens us in a very unique way. I want to give you some how-tos to get close to the Christ that Jesus was trying to offer. There's nothing special in worshiping a man who lived 2,000 years ago, dear friends. Anybody can do that. To pick up a Bible, to read what he said, to repeat what he said. To go out and to spread the word means nothing. Remember what he said? You honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. There's a great teaching in that. Because Jesus brings us to the heart of life. He is the heart of life. And he's saying to us, don't think from your head. Don't go out and be a hypocrite talking about life, talking about God, talking about what is right and wrong, good and bad. You must know it for yourself. There are too many of us in the metaphysical community, I feel, who have studied too much and experienced very little. You and I need to experience the Christ in us. We don't need to study anymore. You don't need one more philosophy. You don't need one more intellectual concept, not one more idea. What we need to do is find the Christ in us as a reality. Let me give you some steps. They are dangerous steps, I warn you. They are unorthodox steps, I warn you. But they lead us to the way of the heart. And that is where you will find the Christ. Not in your head, not in your ego, not in a book, not in the sky. Please remember his words. The kingdom of heaven cometh not with observation. Lo here, lo there. Behold, the kingdom of God lives within you. He didn't say it lives in a book, in a man, in a church. He says it lives within you. So let's look at the way of the Christ in us. The first thing that we must be willing to do, if we are to find this depth, this Christ nature within us, this affinity we have with God, is that you must be totally willing to lose yourself, to let go. All masters say, let go of what you've created about yourself. Let go of your illusions. Let go of your ego. Let go of your pride, your vanity, your fear. Let go, let go, let go. But we don't. We feel it is more important to create something about us rather than to discover who we are. In the West, it's more important to us what we have than who we are. So we miss a lot. So we dress a certain way, and we drive a certain car, and we live in a certain neighborhood, and we talk a certain way, and we agree with the majority of people, and there we find a security. But that is not the security that a Jesus would find. He did not go along with the Pharisees or the scribes. He did not either condemn them. He just said, the way is to your heart. In the beautiful teachings that he offered to us on the Mount, he said, your forefathers told you to live an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, love your neighbor as yourself. He he was right. He was saying, lose yourself. Be willing to lose all of those old ideals, those old feelings, those old attitudes. Be willing to let them go. Don't be busy trying to create an ego, a persona, an attitude, but to let that go and to be so empty that when you are empty, God can fill you. When you are not there, God is possible. It's the old adage, let go, let God. Another very important attitude. It is to let go of that judgmental attitudes that we hold, those value judgments that we make. You know, there is nothing that Jesus talked about more than judge not. When we judge not, so to speak, from our intellect and our rationale, our ego and our emotions, we create the opportunity to know a love that is unconditional. We have thought that judgment is righteous. We have used our judgment in a way that has taken away from our being. We have used it to condemn other people, to make ourselves appear right. The truest form of judgment is to remember in every situation to be unconditionally loving, to be tolerant, to be compassionate, that forgiveness is the necessity to life. That is being unconditional. And it hurts us. It hurts us to do those things because our mind and our ego are harsh and wanting to condemn other people and ourselves for the mistakes that we have made. No, Jesus was a very dangerous person, and I hear people say to me, oh, if he were just here today, we would all appreciate him. I think not. I think he was a very dangerous man. He was bringing us closer and closer to love. And I've noticed this in my own life, that the closer I come to that unconditional love that lives within me, the more dangerous and the more frightening it often becomes. Be persistent, dear friend. Namaste. We thought in this particular segment we would go back to the mailbox. I love to receive your letters, your questions, your cards. It's always interesting to see where you're coming from and what you're thinking, and I would like to share as many of these cards and letters as I can with you in the questions. And as I say to you, sometimes I think the questions are very interesting and sometimes they're very cruel, but I try to include as many of them as I can to kind of show you what we're getting, maybe answer some of the questions that you might have on your mind, okay? I want you to understand that the answers that I give come from me. These are my perceptions. I'm not representing anyone else but myself on this, okay? First question comes from Escondido. What do you mean by a spiritual master? You refer to Jesus and Buddha and other contemporary masters in the same way, but I don't understand what the word master means. It's an Eastern term. The word master doesn't mean that this person is better than you or than me. The word master comes from the very context that this person has attained themselves. They have, so to speak, mastered themselves. They are not at the beck and call of the whims of ego or emotions or the physical surroundings that we might find ourselves in. A master is a person who does not react. You and I have had very quiet, simple moments where we've become the master, where we've been able to see the futility of an emotion or the absurdity of an anger. And instead of getting involved in that, what we have done is we have looked at it and not participated in it. And that's how we achieve great spiritual mastery. Jesus was a master. Some people think that's a put down. They say, well, then you're not saying that he was the only begotten Son of God. Well, let me say this to you. You are the only begotten Son of God. It lives within you just as it did Jesus. Please remember what he said, that we were here to do the greater works, all of us. You don't hear many ministers talking about doing the greater works, do you? That you were meant to do them. You are. And the greater works have nothing to do with going out and spreading the Word of God around by handing out Bibles or being nothing more than a Bible spitter. You know, you've heard those people that do nothing but memorize Bible passages and then shoot them out to justify what they want to believe in or what they want you to think. Never get in debates with a person who can spit out the Bible, because they can make it, shape it, and form it into anything they want you to think it to be. No, being a master is being simple. It is loving life. It is being one with life. It is doing one of the most difficult things in life. It is to be simple. It is to flow with the stream. It is to be the Son. It is to be compassionate. It is to be loving. I love what Buddha said, and we'll talk about it on a future program. To become a master, you must want nothing with all of your heart. It's a very true statement. Jesus had no plan for humanity. He did not come here to make us a better culture, a better society, a more advanced people. If you look at his life, if you look at it from purely a physical point of view, he didn't change the world. He came, he offered his love, and he left. What happens in that period is up to us. Jesus was a master. Buddha was a master. Lao-tzu was a master. They had attained to themselves. They had found their higher nature. And every one of them said that you and I could do the same thing. But we choose not to do it. That's what the work is about. I am always suspect of any teaching that says that I cannot attain love, unconditional love. That I cannot attain to the Christ nature within me, that I cannot find my Buddha nature. I'm always very curious about that, because what they're really saying is, stay in your place. Your place is everywhere. It's in the heart of God. It's in the heart of life. Let's look at another question that was sent to us from Coronado. Do you believe that Jesus died for our sins to save humankind? No. Maybe. Yeah. All of those things. First of all, no one can save us. No one man could die for all of us, especially if we weren't born. What kind of justice is that? I wouldn't want a man dying for me before I had a chance to mess my life up to give him something to die for. It's an absurd thought. And yet Jesus did come into this world to offer us a form of salvation that is very subtle, that most people are not sensitive enough to really see. The salvation is, come to your heart. Come back home. Come back to yourself. Don't be looking so much out there for it. Be looking for it within you. Jesus didn't die for our sins. He died because of them. He died because of our cruelty, our anger, our hostility, our lack of understanding, our deep disregard for the respect for life and respect for life in us. And whenever we say to another person, you are wrong, or you are evil, or you are bad, or you are a sinner, or you are misguided, it shows the hostility and intolerant nature, which was the very single one that killed Jesus. The Romans, the Jews, the Pharisees were all waiting for Jesus to do something dramatic. If you are the Son of God, then save yourself. Well, it didn't happen the way they wanted it. The salvation of Jesus is in his teachings, not in what he did. He offered us one of the most beautiful and graphic teachings of all, a man dropping himself to become the Christ. No, I don't particularly believe in the traditional form that so many people find popular. It's easy to believe in that. It's easy for all of us to believe that someone else died for us and we don't have to do anything but read a book and spit out Bible verses. It goes much deeper than that. We must not just read a book. We must live the teachings that Jesus offered. They are compassionate and sensitive and deeply dangerous teachings because they teach us to drop the things that you and I pride ourselves most on: ego, knowledge, anger, pride. Those are the things that we live for. And Jesus is saying they have no place in the kingdom of heaven. You must drop that. Come and follow me. It is a very difficult thing to follow the nature of the Christ. So, no, not particularly. Not the way most people believe in it, do I? But again, those are my points of view from what I have seen. And you don't have to believe a word that I say. You don't have to believe anything I say. Just practice a few of the ideas that I've offered to you and see where they take you. I don't say that I'm the last spoken word on any of these truths that I've offered to you. You have to listen to them with a great sense of quietness, of stillness. But again, they have to be experienced in you. Don't take what I say literally. Try a few of the things I've offered to you. Let's look at number 3. This one comes from Benita. You speak a great deal about the need for compassion, but I do not understand how to have compassion. Can you help me? Compassion is a very important quality. It is a tolerance. No one can teach you how to be compassionate. Whatever a person can teach you becomes pseudo, phony. Compassionate is the result of kindness. Compassion is the result of unconditional love. Compassion is the result of a non-judgmental attitude. Compassion is practiced day to day. It becomes the living prayer of your life. Let me tell you how to gain this a little bit, though. Don't be worried how to get it. Practice the things that make it happen. Become non-judgmental. Your mind may judge, your emotions may judge, but you don't have to follow that. Don't let yourself react to things as they seem to be. Don't look at life from an appearances point of view. Don't react to the anger, the hostility, the unkindness, the cruelty of life. Quickly forgive people, right now, just like that. The moment you see something happen where you could take personal offense, where you become angry and defensive, drop it immediately. Remember, the most important thing in life is to drop that, not to hold that. If you do the things I've just offered to you, compassion will be a tolerance in you. You'll be able to understand more. You won't look at petty problems and make an issue out of them any longer. You will begin to see the nature of all things in life. And the most important thing in life will be the unconditional side of your nature. Last one. If God created everything, did God create our ego also? This comes from Escondido here. Excellent question. No, that's probably the one thing that you and I have done on our own. Separate from God, we have created ego, and we have that capacity to live our life in the image and the likeness of what we choose. Ego is the barrier between ourselves and God. And if there is anything that we need to break down, it is that barrier. The reason many people find this program, or a teaching like a Buddha or Jesus gave from the Christ, so threatening, is because it breaks the ego. If you wish that ego broken, and only when it is broken, you will have to practice being humble, understanding, forgiving, and to lose face. There we find that the ego is lost and the Christ is born in us. Thank you for being with us. You know, Jesus was none of the things that so many people think that he was. He's been painted as this kind, loving lamb that was put out to slaughter at one time in his life. But I think Jesus is far deeper than that, far more beautiful than that. Quite frankly, I don't think traditional forms of Christianity understand him or give him the benefit of what he was really all about. Quite frankly, he was a very dangerous man, truly one of the most dangerous men that ever lived. Because the closer you got to him, the more you would lose yourself, the more you would lose the anger, the fear, the beliefs, the religious connections that maybe you once had. It is no wonder that the disciples found him frightening at one time. How probably very few people knew how to appreciate and love him because of his depth, because of his clarity, because of his unconditional love. Interesting man. He never took sides, but he was always unconditional in his love. And his last words to his disciples were very important. They will know you are my disciples indeed if ye love ye one another as I have loved you. And yet never once in his life did Jesus say, I love you to anyone. At least it's not recorded. He was a very dangerous man because he prompted us to let go of our fears, to let go of our angers, to let go of our beliefs that we might come into one beautiful moment with God, to find the Christ in ourselves. And that is a very important point in life. We do need to let go. We've become so knowledgeable and so bent on our own religious opinions and beliefs that we've made the Christ in us impossible. We'll see you next week. Namaste.
We're finding who we are. We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We're finding who we are. There's so